Fine. Where you at? I'm in Germany, by the way.
That's cool. That's cool.
So
Thanks.
let me do a quick intro because we're recording, and then Toph, I'm going to let you take it away, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
Welcome, everyone who's watching. This is our Management 3.0 monthly January seminar, kicking it off after the new year. Exciting. And we do these monthly with, interesting, fabulous people like Tofe Evans, who we have today. And so, yeah, these are like a really relaxed, intimate discussion, which is the point. So, yeah, Toph, I'm going to let you take it away, and then you can just say how you want it to go. If you want people to talk intermittently, if you want to talk first, have people ask you questions after, however you want to structure it.
Yeah, so you just want me to intro myself?
Yeah, introduce yourself, and then to discuss what you want to discuss today.
Yeah, sure. So for me, my name is Tofe Evans, an Australian. I have a pretty interesting story where used to struggle really badly with mental health. I went through an episode back in 2014, and it really messed me up. When I struggled through a lot of depression and anxiety during that period. When I break it down after all the work I've done on myself, a lot of it was from people pleasing, and a lot of it was from just not staying integral to myself and trying to fit in. And a lot of unworthiness came from that, because I was trying to be someone who I'm not, as well as issues going through like relationships and business issues and financial issues with all these everyday issues that I'd come across. It just got worse and worse, and I was trying to mask the situation with drugs and alcohol. Let's just be honest. Then there were other ways I was trying to cope with the pain, but it got the unworthiness came to a pretty high that I lost any purpose. That my only purpose was probably suicide, I'd say. Uh, and it was a very stressful time to go through, but I'm actually really grateful to go through that. This was actually when I was overseas. I had to be in Canada and to be back home, if anything, back home, like back home in Australia, and figure out what's going on, because I didn't really want that to happen again. So after after like being a little bit more, embracing a little bit more vulnerability for the first time and being open to the right people, I was able to declutter a lot of stuff. What was going on in like childhood stuff, and because there was a lot of trauma in there from childhood that I didn't realize I was carrying on, that, and I was living through a bit of denial. What happened afterwards, I decided to figure out why I wasn't happy, and what a lot of the correlation I'd found was my health was off track a great deal. And by focusing on my health, I ended up taking up running out of all things. And I was never a runner at school. And running ended up becoming, I'm going to just do 1 or 5 kilometers today to running a marathon. And then a marathon ended up becoming ultra marathons. And then it ended up becoming running 40 events in 1 year, with a friend for charity. And then it became doing running down Mount Everest and being on treadmills for 24 hours and a whole bunch of crazy shit, and doing long swims. And there was a massive charity aspect of my part to give back. And then a lot of things have kind of created from that foundation. So I ended up going from this very depressed kid to someone who was running across the country, and just trying to be the best version of myself. But if I can, when I look at what my purpose has become, I thought it was empowering people to break limits, but over the resilience journey I've been on, it's probably to bridge that gap of disconnect. So I thought I'd make it a little contextual with my story a little bit, just to people like, why would you run these long distances? Because it helps me mentally, and it helps me fit physically, but it was also a way of me giving back.
No, it's amazing you're so, candid and authentic, about who you are and where you've come from. I think that's the only way to be. Someone maybe put yours on mute, whoever's TV that is. Did you guys hear that?
I think it's Jose. Jose?
Jose, you have a Spanish. There you go. Yeah, not that we don't like the Spanish.
Gracias.
So, does anyone have? This is an interactive chat, and so Toph has already been on the podcast, amazing. So I don't want to monopolize this with my questions. So just feel free to just kind of jump in, ask questions, or Toph also just keep talking about how you continue to get to where you are today.
Yeah. So after I've taken quite a few pivots actually, and this is like anyone that's in business would probably understand this. There was, after doing these crazy long distances, I was trying to sustain it, and how do I go to that next level? So I actually ended up going into book writing, which was completely different. But I had been blogging the journey in 2016 and 2017. I had really been blogging the journey because there's plenty of content to write about when doing 40 events in 1 year. But then the following year of finally taking up public speaking, all that, it was kind of good to let people into that world to see what it was like emotionally. And then I thought, I think it's time to write this book, because I had a lot of collateral to fall back on. The collateral just came in really handy if I'm like, I need to write about this topic in the book. But if I give a little bit of context why I wrote the book, I just wanted to get someone out of that rut. I think we spoke about this on the podcast, Sam, like about the book. The book has done a lot better than I expected. That was probably a good thing because I didn't put any expectations on it. Just that, other than to get the book out, because there's a lot of fear with putting something out for the first time, and there is, what are people going to think of me? The exact same reason why the same methodology that I did to release a book is to when I'm on stage to this, and that removes the notion of what are people thinking of me, and that probably helps me with my confidence a great deal, and that's taken over time, as well as like being a little bit more mentally fit. And my brand has shifted a great deal from pushing limits to more resilience, because a lot more people can relate to that. And pushing limits is great and one thing, but for me, like, life is a comeback, and life is about bouncing back, which is what resilience is. It doesn't mean that if you get pushed, you just got to get the hell back up. But yeah, that's a little bit more. It's like really glitchy where you are, Sam.
Yeah, that's okay. I can hear you.
By the way, what is your company doing? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, what were we saying, Matt?
What are your business?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually teaching resilience. That's what it is. So where that was the framework I teach and the keynote speaking. So the business is really about is keynote speaking and more consulting. But resilience is well needed in this world. With there are like projected things, even in business, where a lot of employers want their workers to be a little bit more resilient. Like that's the top there's a top 3 traits that I was reading somewhere that it's needed, which makes sense. You see it all in sport. If anything, in comebacks, you see it, people with that may have bounced back from a crazy injury, or maybe they've lost a leg of some sort. So for me, I'm just here to teach what I've learned. Like I've learned in the most unconventional ways by putting myself through, not only through my mental health struggles, but learning from pushing myself in 24-hour runs, and that there's a lot of resilience that's needed for that because the mind wants to take over. And that's essentially what the business is about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Can you hear me, or is it glitchy?
I can hear you fine, but the image is a bit glitchy.
Sorry. I'm just wondering, you talk about resilience, but what are the ingredients for resilience for people listening who, want to know how to be as resilient as possible?
Yeah, sure. So the first key ingredient is probably what people don't want to hear, and that's adversity. And when I say adversity, it's some sort of stress, and you can it comes down to like how you perceive things. It's either going to be, you either look at it from a good perspective or a bad perspective, and the adversity can feel really bad at first. Where I know people that have lost their parents and are going through cancer as we speak, or maybe they're going through some sort of depression. Because like I went through something recently in the last 4 months, and I looked at it like I better practice what I preach because I'm all about this. And I came across something where I least expected, and it was an insecurity actually. And I'll be honest. So what I've found is adversity is the first thing, because it's gonna actually it's probably a good thing when you go through some sort of, it's going to really shake you up. It's going to keep you grounded, and it's going to make you feel like you're going to really feel it. That's the first thing. So adversity is one thing. The next step is about the mindset. That's the next stage over. So where it's, for me, like the things what I've realized by by being super aware that I don't really want to feel like this. What am I going to do about it? And there are many ways to go about it, but one of the first things I do straight away is be around people that my inner circle, and that's usually mainly more guys in particular, like other heterosexual males that don't judge, and they're the guys that I can talk to about anything without feeling any judgment. That way I can get it off my chest and think of an action plan to go through that. And that way, at least I'm in the right mindset and whatever it is through. So for example, a recent one, actually, I'll continue the other key things, the last key piece, and then I'll use an example. And the last one is like gratitude, a lot of gratitude, like waking up saying 3 things I'm grateful for, even before I go to bed as well. Even writing that stuff down, journaling it, and just like gratitude, I find is the fastest way to change your definition of reality. That it teaches, it subsequently relates to empathy and perspective, because you can, it keeps it, like for example, I don't know if anyone's been to any third world developing countries, any first world countries, third world countries, and it can be very eye-opening, and it can be very confronting at first. But some of the people there are the poorest people, but they're the most grateful people. And it's because they focus on the fundamentals, and they focus on food and shelter and water and family, like literally the basics. Everything else seems like a bonus, and they've been through hell. So it's like, we've gone through that, then this is nothing. And I see that, and it makes me super grateful what I have. And that gives me another perspective lens to go, okay, so if I'm back home and I'm complaining about the wrong things, I go, I remember when I was in Brazil that time in the favelas, or I was in Papua New Guinea, through the meeting the locals. I'm like, okay, I'm actually a little richer than I think. So, and then it comes back down to adversity. And for me, the point of like the practical resilience framework is so that I embrace adversity at the end, as opposed to looking at it like a chore. So I like to put myself through something scary. Like before we came in this, had a cold shower, and did some breath work just to get me ready for my day today. And I know that's always going to benefit me. It's like embracing a little bit of discomfort. So using an example of something that happened recently, I'd say back in August mainly. So I did a big race in August, and it was it was a 214 mile or 345 kilometer race across Scotland, and that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Where it was 70, I was out there for 76 hours, and I ended up having to pull out with 40 miles to go. So I got 174 mile in, pretty stoked with that. And just because my body was breaking down, more, if anything, my body was breaking more than mentally. And I had to, my support crew, it was their decision. You got to pull out, man. The rest, you're going to probably die on the next checkpoint. That was fine, but coming across that loss, if you want to call it a loss, all these other insecurities started to rise. And the big one was probably, I hadn't loved myself for probably over a decade. So I was all about teaching it, but I hadn't, it wasn't until I saw a dear friend, and I just needed some honest feedback. And after when he said his words, it came to mind that, yeah, I wasn't doing anything for myself at first. So since then I have been, like, I got up half an hour before this call, I'm going to do things for myself first thing in the morning. Hadn't even checked my phone probably to a minute before we got onto this. So if I go through the adversity mindset gratitude, the adversity of going through understanding that I was doing, it was like, even I'll admit, even in 2017 when I was doing different charities for different causes, a lot of it did come from people. What I thought was compassion was actually ego. And look, I have an emotional connection with those charities now because I'm able to simulate their struggle by putting myself through something similar. Like, for example, running down Everest is a very high altitude, and people with cystic fibrosis can't breathe properly every day. So I don't have any family. I have an emotional connection now because I have a lot of friends and their kids have close with. But when I was looking at it now, I'm like, I'm glad to go through all that mental struggle with going, I haven't been able to do things myself, and I understand the value of it now because I bit myself in the ass. There's like, it's always powerful to have a cup that's full, and my cup, not only was my cup empty, I gave the cup away. So the mindset I did to go through that, I actually had to ask for help. As the guy that's about resilience, it changed everything. It gave me, I went through identity crisis because I'm constantly pivoting, and that took a toll on me. Because funnily enough, so Tofe is a derivative from Christopher, and because so Chris Tofe, and then Tofe comes from Tofa. And it's just stuck, and it's probably the best personal branding decision I've ever made, because I'm the only Tofe Evans in the world, as opposed to the 400 million Christopher Evanses. It's a common name. I might as well just be called Muhammad, for God's sakes. And like, I used to be Chris the designer, because I used to be mechanical engineering and design. And then when I shifted to resilience and ultra running, that even played a toll on me, like Tofe the resilience guy. And I was pretty cool with that. And after Scotland, I didn't want to do any running or any endurance or anything. And I'm like, what if I don't want to be a runner ever again? And then that played on my identity. So, reaching out for help, going to, like, it's a men's group I go to. I'd say it's a form of therapy, which is great. I would highly recommend everyone to have a therapist or like to see someone of some sort, because it prevents anything from implosion. It prevents anything from any episodes from taking over, because having people to listen to comes back to the human connection, which is what I'm entirely about. So how I look at the identity thing, and still in the mindset, how I look at the identity now, I just want to be known as a kind, loving person and I just happen to use endurance as an avenue. I just happen to use marketing as an avenue. I just happen to use speaking as an avenue to fulfill that purpose of mine. So it doesn't matter if for example, I've just taken on a new role as a consultant as well. This is just to get a bit of funding up in business development for recruitment, which is something I feel I'll be really, really good at. Because I'm dealing with people all the time, and I feel like I've got a good psychology understanding people. And by just going, I'm a kind, loving person, but I just happen to use biz dev and recruitment and consulting as a side, like as an avenue, hasn't played a part on my identity now, which is great. So I'm actually really grateful to go through that, or else I would probably be going through some insecurities right now and trying to be hiding it. So that's the practical resilience framework, looking at it from a real life example. And subsequently, the convergence, if you grab like a Venn diagram, between them all, you've got like discipline, obsession, and perspective. And perspective, I think, is probably the most important one, because that's what's going to change your outlook and give you outlook when you're going through some sort of hell, or if you want to grow, because you can use it in the opposite way. For example, let's use fitness. If I used to and I still really do. I love his book. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a childhood hero of mine, still, and like he's a hero now. Where he used to train for Mr. Olympia and Mr. England, he did all these other ones as well. He would train 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I go, well, if he's a human being, same as me. If he can do 6 hours a day, I can probably just do 45 minutes today. So that's using perspective. I'm just not comparing. That's a different one, because comparison, I feel, it does nothing but is like a cancer. But by looking at, okay, if a human being can do that, what can I do? Can I do a fraction of that? And yeah, I hope that answers your question, Sam.
Yeah, 100%. Does anyone else want to chime in or say anything so I don't monopolize? Well, I'll just ask until someone else wants to say something. I mean, you talked a lot about, I'm going to just turn my video off for the bandwidth.
So going back to the points. All right. Okay. Just going back to the three or the major points about resilience. So how or when are you? I mean, as a keynote speaker, I can imagine that you talk about that. But is there any practical sessions you give or people advise what they should do? I mean, you talk about your life, but is there something? I mean, everyone is in a different situation, and so is there something you can some techniques or some other ways for to have a common sense or to experience? Yeah.
What was that last part you said?
To have maybe so people have a feeling or understanding about that, because I guess not everyone is going through the same thing as you, or we all individuals. So yeah. So how do you teach or train that in a way? Because
okay. So one is going back to what I was saying before, learning to put yourself through something scary every day, because that's going to simulate adversity. That's going to make fear really bearable. And if we're going to go the next step deeper, and don't think too long on the fears, on the type of fears that you have, but just listing the top 10 fears and then knocking off them as you go, but start with the easiest one first. And look, I'm not saying knock it off in one day. For example, I'm just going to, because I'm going to speak on behalf of experience. I used to have a fear of heights, and I really wanted to conquer that by going skydiving. So the first thing was, what's the first thing I can do today? Like, that's the goal. What's the first thing I can do today to get me closer? I'm going to research skydiving and then look into it and then pay for it it was like running the marathon. I did the same thing. I looked into it. I paid for it, so I didn't have loss aversion. So I had to do it now when you pay for it. And then it was about reverse engineering it. That's how I look at it. The next one was I had a fear of public speaking, and speaking I tried was starting with kids because I feel like it gave me a little more confidence as opposed to adults. Even though actually I feel kids are more they critique better, and I look at that now. So that's something very practical, listing 10 fears that you may have. Like I'm not introverted, but some people might be really introverted and just want to ask the barista out for coffee, like not as a date. They just want social interaction. That might be someone's might be, it could be asking someone out on a date. That could be one. It could be, they've never made a cold call in their life. That could be one. So it's listing 10 to fears by starting off with the easiest ones. That's going to increase your fear threshold, because we can't be entirely fearless, but we can fear less, if that makes sense, if you break the word up. What else? One is, here's another cool task. So I was talking about before, like writing and saying 3 things you're grateful for when you wake up. It's also something really powerful to do when you go to bed. But if you want to go the next step deeper, I would write down, just get like a chalk, like a whiteboard, or even get a book, whatever, and write down 100 things you're grateful for. 100. And what that's going to do, it's going to make you really think. And it's also like a meditative state of going, all right, what am I actually grateful for? And when I like to do this every like month or couple months, because it keeps me calibrated and grounded. But I go, for the things, like I'm grateful that my parents are still alive and that they're still together, and I'm grateful for my health, and I'm grateful for that I have my legs, like I have the ability to do what I get to do. I'll get to like number, I don't know, like 35. I always do this. I'll get to number 35. I'm like, I don't know what else to write down, and it gets to like, I'm actually really grateful for my demons, because if it wasn't for the struggles, now everyone has gone through adversity. Maybe someone's gone through a loss of business. Maybe maybe they lost their job. Maybe they're going through. Always go through something. But it's manageable. And I'll even get to things where I'm like, I can see colors, because yeah, I wrote the book to get someone out of a rut of some sort. So maybe it was as deep as that was literally the mindset of it. I just want to help one person with the book. I just want to help one person with the book. Can I just get one person? No. I've got myself, but can I get someone else with the book?
Okay, got it. Okay.
So I is someone maybe as deep as a suicidal rut, or maybe it's someone that is feeling stuck and they just want to go from good to a little bit better. And I actually put it off. It should have conversation because I was holding off, because I was waiting to do more crazy events as content. I was waiting for the day I was running across Antarctica, or I was waiting for like all the crazy. I know I'd done a lot of crazy events, but I thought it'd be more content. And a friend of mine said, "No, save that for another book. All the crazy events. If you ever write another book." I was able to work backwards and work with the publisher, and
How long? Half a year, 1 year?
It took me like 3.5 months. It didn't take me long to write it. I could always rely back on the blogging. Really, the hardest part, like writing the book was the easiest part. And the writing came natural.
What is it about exactly? I
Resilience.
don't know.
It's kind of evolutionary psychology. So I wrote this. The book is called "Everyone Has a Plan Until Shit Is." So it's like we have a plan, and
I
then
just saw the website. Yes. Right.
we all have a plan when things go right. The majority of the time, we don't have a plan when things go wrong, and so adaptability comes into place. But even when things go wrong and you fall down, metaphorically, how fast can you get up? And so that's what the book is about: resilience and adaptability. And so I really wanted to solidify what I've learnt by getting a psychologist on board. So I got a doctorate of psychology, a clinical psychologist to work with me on this book. Where if we're looking at like a trifecta of things, I've got myself who's been the guinea pig to put myself through all of these situations. That's actually gone through depression, anxiety, and who's put himself through adversity on purpose um, as well as like the raw lived experience, the guinea pig of adversity, and someone that has a lot of clinical and theory behind and the science and understands the science of why the psychology of, of mental health and bouncing back as well. So yeah.
Actually, how do you would you imagine you have like teenagers? I mean, or someone else who thinks he was. How can I say it? He wants a lot but does nothing. How would you motivate these kind of
She
guys?
wants, she wants, what did you say, Matt? She wants.
Oh, who wants a lot? Like, let's say someone wants to be a millionaire, but somehow he's not doing anything, you know? So would you motivate these guys, or generally motivate someone? Just hearing it's one thing, oh, this is good, or getting through this resilience, but doing it, or just really practically, yeah, starting it, and not like just watching TV every day or playing games or whatever, you know. I mean, you get like a circle down, you know, the way down and down and down. You're more and more depressed, you know, and you say, oh, I would like to have this. I would like to have maybe a good relationship. I would like to have more, maybe better health or more muscles or whatever, you know. So they're always wishes, but they don't do anything. But how would you? Is there anything you would tell these people how to actually start really doing something?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's all about doing it. You know, you need to do something. You need to experience or really actually embrace every experience
Yeah, great
somehow. You know,
question.
I guess.
There's a lot of things actually that come to mind. What I've known that's worked is
Hmm.
accountability. Accountability will protect you from yourself. That's what it does. So having an accountability partner, having someone that you fall back on, so they can check up on you to go, because it's like one of the worst feeling. It's almost like guilting yourself. That's one thing that's definitely helped me. I feel like I've grown a lot that I don't need as much accountability from others, but it's a good start by going, this is what I want, or even telling the world on social media. That's not to boast, but it's just to it can put a fair bit of pressure by going, you know, this is what I want to achieve. And so if you don't achieve it, people are like, you never achieved it. Um, so that's one thing. There could be a lack of clarity in there. I've found if I don't, even though I'm not definitely anywhere close to where I want to be, at least if I can see where I want to go and I can envision it, at least, because if we're going to use the metaphor or the analogy of car driving, if humans were cars, a lot of people I know are just driving for the sake of it, and they don't know where they're going. And even if they know where they're going, for the people that know where they're going and they happen to break down or get a flat tire and the tow truck's on the way, yes, they still know where they're going. They're just going to be a little bit longer now, which is fine. It's just a setback in life. So to get that's one of the hardest things. It's actually reflecting and actually figuring out what you want first, and not just going like blindfoldedly. So if we're gonna, like, some other steps are actually asking for help. That actually doesn't come easy to people. I've never been. It's only now that I'm only able to ask for help and receive help. That's the other one, receiving for help. So actually asking for help, whether it's maybe talking to like a really good friend that isn't going to judge you, or going to some sort of therapy group. And then
I think the situation is even worse, maybe because could be that your friends are wrong. They actually put you in the wrong direction, and you
they're not the
think they
friends
are
that you
friends.
that talks
And
about this stuff. Then, like, I'm not saying alienate them,
mm,
because I've got mates that I can't talk because they don't understand emotionally. So I don't talk to them about this kind of stuff. But some of my closest guy mates, I can tell them anything. But it's taken me a while to find those kind of people. I actually had to start talking to women first, if anything, because women are going to naturally vent. Guys sometimes put a bit of misjudgment because they don't know, because maybe the way they were parented has been passed on as generation. So vulnerability is something that takes a bit of time to learn.
absolutely.
I had to start with journaling as well. If I'm not going to be able to talk to someone, how am I going to get this out? I'm going to start journaling and just let my pen and the heart do the talking, and really reflecting on what
Okay.
I want. What do I want? And then reverse engineering the steps. But when it comes to doing the steps, start with something start really, really, really small. So when I was at a really low point in my life and I wanted to get my health back on track, that was the main core purpose, to get my health back on track. And if I want to make that a even more specific goal, I think I wanted to lose like 5 kilos. The first step was leaving the house. That was the hardest thing I could have done that day,
Yeah.
because I'm being serious, because all I wanted to
Yeah.
do was sleep 17 hours a day because I was so depressed. So going to the mailbox was the hardest thing. Then the next day, I'm going to get to the end of the
I think
trip,
it's a similar
and
situation with people who go to the gym. I mean, in the beginning, you're totally positive and you want to go every day to the gym, or let's
don't
say
give every
three
day.
times. Oh, it's 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock. You're tired. Am I going to the gym? Oh no. But it happened to me personally. Always after I said, "Oh, actually, I'm tired to go to the gym," but I went to the gym
Yeah,
afterwards. I said it was the best I'd have done.
yeah,
It was a good decision that I went to the gym, but because afterwards your body feels
that's
really good.
true. And no one has
Yeah,
ever regretted the workout after it's done.
after
During the
it's
workout, or majority of the time, but afterwards, it's never been, oh, I'm glad I didn't do that. And no, it's never like, oh, I wish I never did that. It's like, no, I'm so glad I did that. Actually, speaking on the gym one, starting out, there's something called an ESS, so an evolutionary stable strategy. It's when you negotiate with the body and the mind. And if the idea is, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do 6 days this week and I'm going to do 2-hour sessions, I'm going to go really hard, there's a great chance that you're going to burn yourself out because you've never been before. So for me, it's like, if I'm going to go to the gym for the first time in ages, if I've never been, or if I haven't been in, like, hypothetically, I might just do 20 minutes that day, and I might do maybe just one day that week, because you got to, one key thing is to remove comparison. A lot of people are going, I'm not at that person's level. Yeah, because they started on a different trajectory of life before you did, and they have different parents to you, and they look different to you, and they are completely different to you. So why are you comparing? At the end of the day, it's me versus me. That's the one thing you got to realize. Like, can I get a little bit better than I was yesterday? And so, if it means for someone starting, and if it's a health thing, for them to go, I'm going to, I actually want to get my health back on track, and that's a very broad goal. But if they're going to specify on whatever it is, if it was driving to the gym and just walking in and signing up, and that was the hardest thing they could have done, hell yeah, because they're a little bit better than they were yesterday. And
Uh,
even if they were on this great journey and they got better and better, and for some reason they had a setback and it took them away for maybe a month or so, that's
so.
okay, because
But
that's okay, because it's about bouncing back.
But going back to the situation, I mean, the hardest thing for you was going out the door, or not? That's
Yeah.
how you explained it. Getting out of the door. So when you were inside the room or not out of the door, how did you motivate yourself to do it? I mean, you said, "Oh, it's for my health," or I mean, one thing is the motivation. This is one question, and the other thing is keeping that continuity. It's another question because, as you said, the gym example, people start their first 3 months, 2, 3 months. This could happen with anything you want to
Yeah,
actually
the
start and think.
gym's one example, but that's why you need to make a really concrete goal for it.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people, I just want to get healthy, is not a great goal because it's too broad. It's like going into business to get rich. You're not going to get rich if that's your goal. There's nothing you can
Exactly.
anchor to. So you need to think of something that you can anchor it to, and because that's what's going to that's what's going to really get you out of bed. That's what's going to
Like the vision.
having something like a goal that you can anchor it to and having accountability are two really powerful things that like really practical that you can kind of implement. Message that popping.
Um,
Guys, we have fun.
yeah, we've
5 minutes.
yeah, no, this, I mean, it's an amazing conversation. You guys can keep chatting actually if you want to keep chatting. I don't know
I've got to shoot off very soon. I've got to shoot off. I would love to, but I've got to shoot off.
okay.
Um,
So is there I guess, yeah, one last thought or one last question before we wrap up?
what would we
At
do this one? So, also they're based in Australia. We've started something called Next Gen Movement. So I've actually, like I was keep talking about pivoting before, this is another pivot, but it's something where instead of me giving back by doing crazy events for charity, this is actually something a little bit better, and it's something that it's embraced me to learn by speaking with a lot of thought leaders and experts. So two friends and I, we've started something. It's a movement actually, and it's called Next Gen Movement, and it's about
Can you
empowering.
type it in the chat?
Yeah, sure, sure. So
Mhm.
it's called next. So it's called Next Gen Movement. That's what it's called.
Okay.
And the point of it is to empower tomorrow's leaders. No, but it's spelt the way that I've written it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly how you pronounce it. That's how you pronounce it. Um, the the point of it was to empower tomorrow's leaders, and so the two other guys that I am doing this with, we wanted to how we've learned is through our adversity and the mentors that we've taken on, but we feel a lot of people really want mentorship, but they don't know how to go about it, or they don't know if they might not be able to afford it, because like, so what we've done, and there's no website or anything, everything is LinkedIn driven. So I don't know if you guys are really powerful thought leaders. For example, the chick that we're about to put the episode out today, is we just interviewed someone that's grown a brand, a massive global community, and her brand is recognized in over 60 countries, and that growth happened in under 2 years. A lot of people are like, oh shit, I might want to learn from that. Anyone in their own brand, what can I learn from someone that's grown something? We just interviewed a guy that's a dad, and he maximizes other dads' potential, because there's a lot of dads that are feeling depressed and they want to feel better for their kids. So what we'll do is we interview these people, but before we interview them, I wouldn't call us a podcast because we're trying to be just known as a movement. We just happen to use podcasting as an avenue. We put it out to our LinkedIn community, and we're like, if you had this person for like a day, or like if you had them for an hour, what is like a burning question that you would want to know from them? So what happens is we do like an interview process with them, like a real deep conversation, and then we also bring in the community questions too. So you guys are more than welcome, even if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, and we usually submit the questions through our personal pages, and we collect all those questions, because for example, we'll be having our next post, our community post, I believe sometime this week or next week. I think we've got enough people until next week, and we just gauge this is because this is where if anyone wants to submit and they want their question featured, we put it into the interview. And just have, and like literally say their name, what city they're from, and the question they have, and then that allows like it's a really feedback driven movement. That's what we're trying to do. So that's the last thing I actually don't want to plug any of my stuff. I'd rather plug that, because I feel a lot more, I've plugged my stuff so in every other podcast. I feel this is something, a lot more value I can bring by going, you know what, you guys can be part of the next gen movement, because how would you like to see the next generation look? A lot of people I know are complaining about, oh, the future's not great. I'm like, no, the future looks bright as hell. And this is how we can bring it as well. Because imagine if you can learn from like some of the greatest minds and implement that to your own life, and then passing that on to your kids or from anyone else that you may come across in life, whether they're older or younger, doesn't really matter. So that's the last thing I just want to mention. If you guys want to check it out, or be like, anyone can be a part of the movement. That's the thing.
Tof, where can people find you if they want to
get
get
on LinkedIn and have
yeah. What's your address?
LinkedIn.
My address?
No, and LinkedIn, just LinkedIn, and for the next gen movement as well. For I think for the LinkedIn, I saw your profile as well. I just added you.
I think it's this.
Wait, just so,
yeah.
so for people not on the
so
chat,
it's still a grow. It's
I think Sam wants to say, can you also send the link of the next gen movement?
Oh, so as I was saying before, we don't have a website or anything.
I know. With the LinkedIn. Oh, okay. So everyone can actually write to you, Tofe Evans.
So,
or just tell since you're recorded, just tell your email address to the ones who might join later in some time, who will watch the video for yourself.
Verbalize the LinkedIn address because it's video. Exactly. Oh, okay. All right. So, even if you want to just add me, because right now it's done through our personal pages. We probably will get like a page up. That's the other thing, like steps that take to do something. So we're still in the growing processes. Like we've done pretty well for like only for like a few episodes, but it's something we're like constantly looking at. How do we make it so that it's not coming from our personal pages? So my LinkedIn page, well, I've put up the link, the second last thing that's popped up just there. If you guys just want to add me, and just we put them out usually every week. Yeah, I think it's every Thursday, I believe. We put out these community posts, and then end up putting the videos out like literally that following week. So the community posts and the episodes come out every week. And yeah.
Okay, and I don't know if you guys can hear me, but for those who aren't on the call, it's Tofe Evans on LinkedIn. Well, this was super exciting. It flew by. Tofe, you're super inspiring as always. And Don and Paolo, thank you guys so much for joining. And everyone watching this, we get, lots of people watch. So really, thank you this was awesome. People watching, we have these every month. So don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. We'll tell you when the next seminars are. And yeah, Toph, thank you. Really, such a pleasure.
No, thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one. See you.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.